Okay, we are really lucky here at Mr. Landcruiser. When you're into your 40 series and 60 series, we get to see some very unique cars from all over the world, some unique imports, some unique imported ones into this country. Now this one is on that list of one of the really rare cars that you'll ever get to see, and we'll go through the whole car for this walk around, because it's more than the fact that it's just a 1983 BJ46, meaning a mid-wheelbase. It's got it's longer than a shorty, shorter than a troopy. This one has a fascinating story, and it's an actual Japanese import. So in Japan, they got a ton of stuff that the Aussies did not get to make them legal, just different things that they got, and we'll go through the lot. So this one started its life as a Japanese car, and in 1991 it made its way to New Zealand. Now New Zealand, maybe import laws are different. They imported a few 46s from Japan, and this was one of them, a very rare one. So it lived in New Zealand for quite some time. It had two owners in New Zealand. The last gentleman, a German fellow, bought it and owned it for a little while and then put it on the market. And an Australian found it, and now the Australian, Doc found this one, and Doc purchased it. Now Doc flew over and they did a bit of a tour in New Zealand and used this car to tour in, loved it so much, Doc imported it back here to Australia. But it doesn't stop there. Now Doc owns this one, or owned this one until very recently, and we'll go into why he sold it, but he owned this one. And in 2011, Doc got a job in Dubai. So he was overseas and it was parked up, and in southeast Queensland in 2011 we had some really bad floods. Now this vehicle did not get flooded, but where it was being stored, the mold was coming through, the rust was coming through, it was starting to deteriorate, and it was doing nothing parked up in a shed. So Doc decided in 2011, 2012, it's time to take it to Dubai, where him and his wife are living, and it made its way to Dubai. Now in Dubai, he brought it over with the mold and the rust, and he decided, well, he's living there, working there, now's the time to do the full restoration. Now this car, one of the only things that have changed on this car is the colour. It started life as a white 033. A lot of guys know that's a Toyota colour, but Doc's wife actually liked it. It was a limited edition. I think it was an anniversary edition FJ Cruiser car. They chose Heritage Blue, and isn't it beautiful? So it's gone from 033 white to Heritage Blue, and you won't find a skerrick of white on it. It was a full restoration in Dubai. He found somebody quite reputable over there, had it all done and enjoyed it. Now this vehicle is a man's daily, might I add. It's a daily in all these different countries, and that's why when Doc moved back to Australia, I believe in 2020, he bought the Landcruiser with him and still used it as a daily. Now a new gentleman owns it, also Dr. Ben owns it now, and Ben has picked it up really recently. The reason Doc had to sell this one, now Doc's got more than one shorty. He's got a collection of quite a few cool cruisers. We might even put his Instagram under here, because if you want to follow Doc, he's got some really cool toys, and they're all Landcruisers. So Ben's bought it. It's made its way back here in 2020. Doc's driving it, but Doc lives up the top of Australia. This was only kilometres away from the beach, and it started again. He said the salt air was getting to it. He saw a few bubbles in the paint. He's got multiple Landcruisers. It's time to find this one a good home. So that's where Ben comes into play, and Dr. Ben has purchased it and brought it back to southeast Queensland. And that's when we've met this vehicle and Dr. Ben. So why it is in Mr. Landcruiser, I guess it's been off the road for a little while. It came roadworthy. I've got to say, we had a very small list, not really roadworthy stuff, just maintenance. When you purchase a car, you might spend good money in a car. It's good to know where it's at and how it's running. So that's basically where Mr. Landcruiser stepped in. Now let's go through this car. What makes this BJ42 Japanese import so unique? We're going to go straight up the front. A lot of stuff here is just non-Australian. And if we head straight up the front, the chrome bezel and bumper bar have been there since day dot. That's Japanese, straight out of the dealership. And we'll notice the fog lights too. The fog lights are bigger than the ones you might see on the Australian ones. They're a 9-inch fog light. They're Kyoto, if I'm pronouncing it right. They're genuine Toyota 9-inch. And the mesh on them came out factory as well. So that's all how it should be. While we're up the front, we found something really fascinating. If we have a close look at the bezel and the guard, you'll see what looked like a little weather strip there. And we thought, oh, that's something we didn't get here. And talking to Doc, he's told us that in Japan, they had legal requirements that the wheels sit under the guard so many millimeters. So what they did in Japan is put spaces in the whole guard. So it's not just under the bib, but also where the guard is attached to the chassis, there's a space there as well. So that's given its legal requirements. It's pushed the front guards out, which leads to the flares on the back. Again, factory flares, factory steel flares, fitted from day dot for Japanese. While we're on the outside, we've also got these mirrors. Aren't they bottlers? Not an option here in Australia whatsoever. And I've driven this one a few times, or maybe even more than a few times. It's so enjoyable that it's kind of cool. I don't know about how practical, but I'll tell you, if you were towing or something, they're really wide and they work a treat. So it just gives it a cool look. And maybe in Japan, they four-wheel drive a little less than we do. So we'd probably knock them off all the time here in Australia. Now, again, this is an LX. Says so there. People say, it's only got 2 wipers. But in Japan, this is fascinating. In Japan, the LX only had 2 wipers. The triple wiper was only for not many other countries at all, Australia being one of them. But factory double wipers, again, been there from day dot. And if we have a closer look at the wiper itself, they're 2 different wiper arms from each other. So the wiper, the driver wiper, has a little extension, and this is to help it flex more to cover a greater area. So again, non-Australian, Japanese, little arch there. Still up the front. How cool is this? This is a genuine Toyota part number, and the great news is we've sourced them and we've purchased 20 of them from Japan. So if you're interested in this little rubber here, little genuine rubber here, they probably retail at 15 bucks genuine. They're going to be cheap. That is put there so when you're working on the car, you can put the bonnet all the way back, not scratch the paint, not scratch the roof. So a fantastic little genuine add-on there. Okay, moving back, we've got, let's look at the doors. The doors in 1983 in our country have quarter glasses. Full glass is not an option. Zero, not, oh, but mine come with it. No, it didn't. Not in 83, not in Australia. They did on the imports. This is quite common, a full glass window, and in 83, and being all this it's a MIDI, so it's got a different rear glass setup as well. Also on the outside, it just keeps going. This thing's fascinating. We've got the from factory, the hub covers on front and back, but if we also look in 83 in Australia, that would poke out more because that would be a floating axle. Not in Japan, it's a semi-floater. I see the Americans went right at 60 series and what have you as well, and Japanese with semi-floating axles. So, shows a little rarity here as well. Let's take a look under the bonnet because it just keeps happening. They've got advanced technology for back in 83 that we did not get here in Australia. We'll have a look. Okay, under the bonnet. Oh, hello, handsome. That's a little bit too close, but under the bonnet. Now there's a few things here. This is fascinating, eh? Well, it is for a dork like me that loves his 40s. Straight away, I see the fuel pump sitting up here above the fuel filter. Why is it there? Because the injector pump on this one, on the Japanese model, is not an inline pump, it's a rotary pump. So it deleted its position and that goes up there. Again, not Australia. One other thing, one major thing for this car, that in 1983, Toyota weren't offering this to other countries, but if we look here, we have vacuum assist transfer for the four-wheel drive selector. Something that, I don't know the exact year, later on in the 60 series, you started doing your push button vacuum assist. Well, in 1983, in Japan, the 40s had it. Bloody fascinating. The LXs got the sound deadener, the protector there, factory, and probably in Japan it's more applicable and you needed it. Throughout we have, this is an LX, it does have the power steering, it does have the 5-speed, and it does have, I see the aircon compressor down in there, it's got aircon. We'll go inside and have a look at all that. So it's got 1983, it's got all the bells and whistles. The Japanese weren't stupid, they made sure they had everything. This one is so stunning inside, it's just bloody beautiful, immaculate, so clean. I've taken my shoes off to hop in another man's vehicle just to keep it nice and clean in case I stood in one of Bluey's turds. Now the interior of this thing is very different from your normal 40. Some of it we got, some of it we didn't. Now these seat trims, they are LX everywhere. The floor mat, this one has provisions for your PTO winch, that's brown, that's throughout the world. This one's some really cool stuff about this. It does have the aircon, and right next to the aircon, now I don't know the accuracy of this, but I've been told that in Japan they needed to legally carry a flare in a car. So this one has a flare bracket, and it's still got the flare container, which sits down in a little flare bracket on the aircon. While we're up at the dash, this thing, check this out.
736 questions already coming in. Is there a standout?
That is the factory stereo, still in excellent working order, using the, we can't show it, but there's a speaker hidden up beside the dash. We can get some comments to say if guys have seen this in Australia for some of the things, but on the passenger side, there is a little step inside the vehicle where you can just prop yourself up, climb in, wipe your foot on another genuine factory part, a little step there. Looking straight down at the console, which is LX, it's got little compartments. Now this is really cool. I said it's got a heater, so the people in the back have an adjustable heater to keep their feeties warm, and it's also got a nice little ashtray. This is fascinating. So we've got the side windows could open. Imagine this, back in 83, the kids could open the side window, light up a Darba, have their Marlboro, and then use the ashtray here in the back. We'll go right through to the back. This is a 5-seater, so it's got a huge covers. There's a portion that sits on the wheel arch to give it more bum room. Japanese aren't big people, but they've given it plenty of room. It would have been plenty cozy for 3 people in the back of this. Now we'll come back to some of the trims. This is really cool. So these trims up here are LX, but I do notice just the detail on these trims. They've got little lugs to hide, just to hide the screws. Throughout this car, they're trying to pull away from the agriculture look and make it very luxurious. Everything still works, all the lighting still works up in there. It's even got a sexy ass. Now the back end of this thing, check out the number plates, very cool. To score them, I believe they came with the car. Very good score, Dr. Ben. It's got a sticker, how cool is that? Bump stops, the bumperettes, bump stops, whatever you will, they're chrome from factory. The step has been put on there from factory. Fascinating. Now, if we're going to open up now, you've got to remember, this is the LX. LX stands for luxury, and this is the luxury model, LX. Not only is it a luxury model, it's a MIDI. So it's got, we'll go inside and have a look at the seats. We've got the rear seats, but then it's got a lot of room in the back. And while I was snooping around in another man's car, I found this folder, and this folder is a detailed record of part of its history, only part of its history. So this folder is a Dubai history folder. So just in that period of its life, from 2012 to I believe 2020, restoration and all the work and money spent on maintaining and keeping it to what it is all documented. Stuff like this only retains value to the car or adds value. Now all the trims on an LX, this bit's a little bit obvious. A lot of LX owners or enthusiasts will know no other model had door cards throughout, side cards, access to a toolbox right here. LX came with carpet floor, carpet rear, and just little trims that hiding just the mechanism. It's sort of hiding the agricultural look of a Landcruiser. So we know that Landcruisers are a real agricultural car and designed for the farm. This is the LX. This was made for a family. Now a little update. I just jumped out, and as soon as I jumped out of the car, Richard alerted me. Richard's such a clever fellow. He's so smart. Don't encourage him, but he alerted me that the little air duct on the other side is pointed on the glass itself. So the driver can easily wipe his own window, but he can't lean across. So you can put the aircon or heat, you can have it coming up onto the glass to clear your vision. Good one, Richard. I had no bloody idea, and now I do. You're always learning stuff here. Well, I am. And so that's a little bit more of an explanation about what's going on with the ducting. Now also this one, what's exciting about this one's been in catalogues, it's been in swimsuit catalogues. I'm sure it's had some bikinis hanging all over it. So in Australia here, when it's got back, it's done some catalogue shoots. It's a car that really stands out and is asked for a lot. So if you want to see this car in the flesh, it will be at CLEX. It will be at the Mr. Landcruiser Car Show and Expo, October the 7th this year at the Caboolture Showgrounds, on display with another 250 to 300 cars. If we have our way, we're going to squeeze in 350 of them. Future plans for this one. There's a couple of little bubbles over it. You can barely bloody see them, but it's such a beautiful car. It's not purchased to four-wheel drive and go up the Glasshouse Mountains and tip it over. This one's a collector's item, a museum's piece. If it ever sells again, and it won't be on Facebook Marketplace, it'll be in a Shannon's auction or something really fancy, because this is a very, very unique, rare car in Australia. Fascinating. We're so chuffed here at Mr. Landcruiser to be able to work on it and also have a turn at driving it. Thank you, Dr. Ben, for choosing Mr. Landcruiser. You own such a beautiful classic car. This one's a 1983 mid-wheelbase BJ46.